Democracy in Hong Kong is evolving and still far from fully evolved. Most people in Hong Kong seem to agree that democratic development is needed. But there is acute controversy over the form and the pace of such development. This controversy is not only political, it has become a matter of party politics. And as a judge, which I still am, I must steer clear of politics, especially party politics. The question which I can and will raise is this: can the rule of law prevail in the absence of full democracy? I will give my answer and then explain the concepts involved in that answer. My answer is yes on certain conditions. First, there has to be independent judicial enforcement of an entrenched constitution. Second, powers must be properly separated. Third, human rights must be protected in conformity with international standards. Fourth, finally, and most importantly, the existence of the rule of law, even before the implementation of full democracy, must not be treated as justification for delay in democratic development. The first of the conditions which I named involve two concepts which I should explain. One is judicial independence, and the other is an entrenched constitution. The second condition involves only one concept to be explained. It is the separation of powers. The third condition also involves only one concept to be explained. It is the concept of human rights. The fourth and final condition, you'll remember it is that the existence of democracy, even in advance of full democracy, must not be treated as justification for delay in democratic development, is a condition which I regard as essentially self-explanatory. Other rights, even the most basic, are illusory if the right to vote is undermined. Even though we can uphold the rule of law in the absence of full democracy, we can do that only for a limited period. Now, turning to the rule of law, I will not attempt to come up with a complete definition of the rule of law. But the four conditions which I have stated should already have sketched a picture of the rule of law in outline. Judicial independence consists essentially of appointing judges of integrity and ability, leaving them to decide purely according to their true view of the law and the facts, and giving effect to their decisions. There are many detailed measures by which to preserve this independence, and there are many ways in which it is liable to be undermined and eroded. Constitutional law consists of the laws that establish the principal branches of government and set out the fundamental rights and freedoms of the people. Now, typically, the principal branches of government are the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. The executive and the legislature are the political branches of government. They should be formed, and they should then perform democratically. The judiciary is the politically neutral branch of government. Impartiality, fidelity to the rule of law, and independence are its defining characteristics. A constitution may, as in Britain, for example, be made up of the ordinary laws, or it may, as in the United States, for example, be contained in a single document which cannot be changed by the ordinary legislative process. Such immunity from change is known as entrenchment. And that tells you what I mean when I spoke of an entrenched constitution safeguarded by an independent judiciary. Now let's turn to the separation of powers. The separation of powers is a doctrine whereby the powers of the principal branches of government are kept sufficiently separate for the power of each branch to check the power of the other branches, and for a proper balance of official powers to be maintained. This is actually directed to achieving efficiency, to avoiding tyranny, and providing the sort of governance which is appropriate to a free society. Now I turn to the concept of human rights. The fundamental rights and freedoms, collectively called human rights, are for the state to protect rather than to create. Why? Because they predate the state, being inherent in the human person and being therefore the birthright of humankind. It's not for the government to give you your human rights. You were born with them. It is for the government to protect it. That is what I say as to the source of human rights. Well, what about the content of human rights? Well, my view of the content of human rights flows naturally from my view of their source, and what I say is this, that I have, after a lifetime in the law, not a very long lifetime because law is long and life is short, but still, in my lifetime in the law, I have come to see human rights in this way, so that people may live and let live as human beings. There are certain minimum entitlements that they can demand for themselves and must accord to others. These entitlements involve civil liberties, personal security, security of property, however modest, self-expression, public participation, respect for otherness, and at least a tolerable standard of living. In short, they enable us, each and every one of us, to be ourselves. and to live and let live with human dignity in how we treat others and how we are treated by them. That is the heart and soul of human rights. And it's nothing that you don't know about. Some human rights are of a civil and political nature. Others are of an economic, social, and cultural nature. There is, I think, a growing awareness, maybe not growing as fast as I would like, but growing nevertheless, of the vital importance of a judicially active, indeed a judicially proactive approach to the enforcement of socio-economic rights. Now, if the law stays away from socio-economic rights, then I am sure that the best and brightest of our young people will stay away from the law. And if that happens, where will the law be? When young people, and older people too, I hope, think about the law, they are concerned to know whether law and justice are the same. Those of us who are lawyers, don't laugh because some of you will be lawyers, tend to think in terms of justice according to law. The essential quality of human rights is the same as the essential quality of the rule of law and democracy taken together. Ultimately, it all goes to building and maintaining a society in which what prevails is made up of order, not anarchy; freedom, not tyranny; representation, not despotism; participation, not exclusion; right, not might; peaceable means, not violence; equality, not discrimination; compassion, not callousness; and dignity, not degradation. That is the world you're going to build. Now, how does Hong Kong stand in regard to the concepts which we've been considering together, you and I? Subject to one thing, there is complete judicial independence in Hong Kong. That one thing is the power of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress to interpret or reinterpret the basic law. That power exists, but I think that there is a way for judicial independence to coexist with it, to exist alongside it. Our courts must always demonstrate to the public with crystal clarity that when deciding cases or deciding whether or not to refer cases to the Standing Committee, they will not be deflected from the true path into a path merely calculated to avoid a reinterpretation. In that way, our judiciary will be demonstrably independent, and its independence ought to be respected both within and beyond the special administrative region. The courts, the legal profession, the legal academy, the media, and the general public, all of us, to make good use of those means. Up to now, Hong Kong has managed to uphold the rule of law, even though we have not yet achieved full democracy. We have not done it perfectly, but by and large, I think we have managed to uphold the rule of law, even though we have not yet achieved full democracy. For how long more can we do so? Well, all I can say is, let us hope that we will not be tested beyond the limit of our capacity. Thank you very much.
And my question is, do you think that how much power should be given to the law enforcement bodies during peaceful protests, or how could be better strike a balance between the individual freedom to assembly, including in the human rights, and also the general interest in maintaining and protecting the public order? Thank you.
Now, I think when you are dealing with how the police exercise their powers, this is always a very sensitive area, not only in Hong Kong, but everywhere in the world. One probably wants to investigate the orders that the police had, and I don't mean just the specific orders, but the operational order which is drawn up in relation to large events, and look at that. Because when it comes to the actual things that happen on the ground, there are great difficulties in the way of the individual policeman. They have their orders to obey. They can't sort of listen to the orders on the one hand, hold a copy of the basic law at the same time on the other hand, and decide which order to obey and which order not to obey. It's very difficult. So we have to recognize the difficulty of the individual police officers. We have to recognize that when it comes to operational matters, the police are the experts. But if you suspect that there's some political bias in the general approach, then you can certainly debate that. And I think that the authorities ought to be prepared to debate this thing each time.
You've mentioned that Hong Kong's rule of law is under threat. So what do you think the role should we, young people in Hong Kong, should play in society to tackle barriers that come across to full democracy and the rule of law in Hong Kong? And also, do you think that an expected population of young people in Hong Kong participating in Hong Kong's political affairs is beneficial to Hong Kong? Thank you.
You do have a role to play. And one of your roles is to ask what you can do. You can't just sit at home wondering and worrying about it until you decide that there's something very positive that you can do. You want to share your anxieties, debate these things, and interact with each other. You know, we have come here together today to discuss these matters. And when we go away, every one of us will have been influenced by every other one of us, including the ones who have not spoken, because they have shown support and interest by their mere presence.
So do you think that the freedom of press is really threatened, or that these cases just happen coincidence?
The concerns over press freedom can spring from many sources. And perhaps the greatest cause for concern is the worries which the journalists' associations themselves express. If they say they are worried, I don't think we should tell them that they shouldn't be worried. But as far as specific cases are concerned, since there have been some arrests, I don't wish to say anything because people may face charges. Those charges may be before a jury, which could be influenced by things that were said. But of course, any attack upon any person is a serious matter, and if there's reason to suspect that it may be related to something like press freedom, then anxiety will grow.
As a roundup, would you like to give some advice, some word of wisdom to our student leaders?
Well, I'd love to. if I could think of something to say, but I think you have got the point. Maybe what I should say to you is that when you are together in a group like this, all supporting each other, you probably don't need the inspiring words which I or any one of you could speak. What you need to do is to remember these things said by your fellow students, keep them in mind, and bring them to the forefront of your mind at the moment of crisis. Here we're all speaking the same language, we're probably all of the same sort of thought. But there will be times when you will be one in a crowd, and you will need all your judgment and all your courage and all your determination. That is the time to draw upon the strength which you have gathered from each other this evening and on occasions like this evening. Thank you.
我記得包致金喺個講座裏邊講過一句話，人權係可以保障到所有人可以有尊嚴嘅生存落去，唔係就係 for 一個人，而係 for 尊重晒所有人嘅。
咁其實喺今次嘅講座入邊啦，我覺得我嘅得咗都幾大嘅。咁我最深刻其中一句Mr. Justin Bucari 講嘅就係其實咧，我哋係要唔係淨止喺度講話要爭取人權或者爭取民主，我哋係要站起來去即係去 take action， 去到即係我哋要有實際嘅行動先可以爭取到。